Janamalam Guru Murti Pujamalam Guru Padyam Mantralam Guru Vakyam Akshamalam Guru Kripa Namo Vishnu Padaya Guru Krishna Bhutale Shmate Bhaktivedanta Bhanaite Namine Vandeham Bhakti Chakoram Goranga Nija Prishtitam Shmate Bhaktivedanta Sundana Namastubyam Shri Radha Kanishtam Rasayana Katamam Sankirtanam Anandam Goswami Navanam Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Namine Namo Bhaktivinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhav Bhumishtam Nidishta Sajna Priya Vaishnava Sri Vamashri Jivanataya Namaha Bhancha Kalpatarude Shankari Pasanude Nam Pavane Vaishnave Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bhato Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishamanustare Vipranamani Hare Krishna Om Vrindaya Tulasudevaya Priyaya Keshava Sacha Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Satyavate Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'd like to offer my humble respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Stutara Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Shri Vana Goswami Maharaj, to Param Gurudeva Nitila Pravistam Vishnupada Stutara Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Shri Vana Goswami Maharaj, Nitila Pravistam Vishnupada Shri Bhaktivedanta Shri Narayana Goswami Maharaj, to all Shri Rupana Guru Varga, Shri Bhaktivedanta, to all Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, to all of you, Madanavat Pranams, those who are hearing now, in the future, will hear these readings of Shri Bhakti Tata Vivek, Shri Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Pranam, Dandavat Pranams, Lalit Mohini Didi, Gaurangi Priya Didi, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you so much for coming together so that we can study this book, transcendental book. I'm sorry for the technical issues, internet problem, computer problem, program problem, everything, all the problems happen. Finally, I just opened the live from my phone. So we stopped last class. Who remembers? So we stopped. I think I was reading from the computer, right? Last class. Oh yeah, because this is here I have in hard copy the first edition in English. There's no preface. This is from not the first edition, the second edition, the year 2000. And online, I was reading last class was the last edition. So here, this copy here is without the preface. Oh no, there's also the preface. Yeah, preface is there, but I think that English introduction is not there. The preface is here too. We already read, yes, and then that little introduction in English we read. Then we were in the chapter 1, in the intrinsic nature of devotion. So we were reading about the importance of understanding what is pure bhakti and what is not pure bhakti. We can be cheated by people who pretend they show off as they had the real bhakti, but they don't have real bhakti. He said, the polluted and mixed concept of what is bhakti is our greatest enemy. So we're in the page 2, Bhaktivedanta page 2. Whoever has the book, we're in page 2. Some people say that there is no value in bhakti, that God is an imaginary sentiment only, that man has merely created the image of a God in his imagination, and that bhakti is just a diseased state of consciousness, which cannot benefit us in any way. These types of people, though opposed to bhakti, cannot do much harm because we can easily recognize them and avoid them. But those who propagate that Bhagavad Bhakti is the highest dharma, yet behave against the principles of Shuddha Bhakti, and also instruct others against the principles of Shuddha Bhakti, can be especially harmful to us. In the name of Bhakti, they instruct us against the actual principles of Bhakti and ultimately lead us onto a path which is totally opposed to Bhagavad Bhakti. Therefore, with great endeavor, our previous acharyas have defined the swarupa or intrinsic nature of bhakti and have repeatedly cautioned us to keep ourselves away from polluted and mixed concepts. We shall deliberate on their instructions in sequence. They have compiled numerous literature to establish the swarupa of bhakti, what is the nature of devotion. And amongst them, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, composed by Swarupa Goswami, is the most beneficial. In defining the general characteristics of Shuddha Bhakti, Swarupa Goswami Pada has written the verse 1.1.11, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So now he will describe the verse that defines pure bhakti. Let's sing together. Anya bhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulena krishna anushilanam bhakti tamam. The cultivation of activities which are meant exclusively for the pleasure of Shri Krishna, or in other words, the uninterrupted flow of service to Shri Krishna, performed through all endeavors of the body, mind, and speech, and through the expression of various spiritual sentiments, bhavas, which is not covered by gyan, knowledge aimed at impersonal liberation, and karma, riyard, seeking activity, and it is devoid of all desires other than the aspiration to bring happiness to Shri Krishna. This is called Uttama Bhakti, pure devotional service. So, we need to understand each and every word of this verse about pure bhakti. And how Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur was saying, we need to know who is our enemy, enemy number one, which is actually who is our enemy number one, is those who follow little bit bhakti, but not exactly in a pure way. So this is the most dangerous enemy. Why? Because those who are completely against bhakti, completely against God, easily we can see, okay, this person is unfavorable. I shall not be in that company. I'll not hear what he says. But someone who is speaking something about Krishna, about gopis, Radha, Bhakti, Mahaprabhu, and then you're like, oh, okay, he's following too. And then you open yourself. But actually that person is not following purely according to the doctrine of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's not following the behavior properly, all the rules. So you get confused because it seems like the same, but it's not the same. So they are worse enemies. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur just warned us. So that's why we need to know what is pure bhakti, so that we are not so that we're not misled by this kind of people. So this verse, Anya Bilashita Shunyam, will define what is pure bhakti. In this verse, what is the meaning of the words Uttama Bhakti? So first thing, Uttama Bhakti, which translates as highest devotion or pure devotion. Pure Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, but Uttama means topmost Bhakti. Does the phrase Uttama Bhakti or topmost devotion also imply the existence of Adham Bhakti or inferior devotion? If you say there's something superior, it means there's something inferior, right? Oh, there's another meaning. Uttama Bhakti, topmost Bhakti, means the stage where the devotional creeper is in its completely pure and uncontaminated form. So remember, Bhakti is compared to a creeper, lata. For example, uncontaminated water means pure water, meaning that in this water there's no color, no smell, no adulteration of any kind caused by the addition of another substance. Similarly, the phrase Uttama Bhakti refers to bhakti which is devoid of any contamination, adulteration, or attachment to material possessions, and which is performed in an exclusive manner. The usage of these qualifying adjectives here teaches us that we should not accept any sentiments which are opposed to bhakti. The negation means saying no to sentiments which are opposed to bhakti, inevitably directs us towards the pure nature of bhakti itself. Perhaps by merely using the word bhakti alone, the meaning is indicated, since the word bhakti already contains within all these adjectives anyway. Then, has Bhakti Rasa Charya Shri Rupa Goswami specifically employed the qualifying adjective uttama for no reason? No. Just as when desired to drink water, people generally ask, is this water good for drinking? Similarly, in order to describe the attributes of Uttama Bhakti, our previous acharyas consider it necessary to indicate that people mostly practice Mishra Bhakti, mixed devotion. In reality, Rasacharya Rupa Goswami is aiming to describe the attributes of Kevala Bhakti, exclusive devotion. Chal Bhakti means cheating devotion, Atibimba Bhakti, reflection devotion, Chaya Bhakti, shadow devotion. Karma Mishra Bhakti means bhakti mixed with karma. Jnana Mishra Bhakti, bhakti mixed with Jnana, and so on, are not Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotion. They will all be examined in sequence later on. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, why in the shloka that Srila Rupa Goswami defined what is pure bhakti, why did he say, like, he said pure bhakti is, means highest bhakti is, rather than he described. Uttama bhakti is, topmost devotion is, then he gave the verse. So he said bhakti wouldn't be enough, because if you say bhakti, automatically you're also discussing that you are negating, means you're denying all the sentiments which are not bhakti, opposed to bhakti. If the negation which are opposed to bhakti inevitably directs us towards the pure nature of bhakti itself. So the word bhakti would be enough, right? But then why Srila Rupa Goswami would write Uttama Bhakti, topmost devotion? When you drink water, you want to know, is that water pure to be drunk? So in the same way, pure devotion is something specific, which is also Shuddha Bhakti. Pure devotion also is an adjective, is a synonym to Kevala Bhakti, which is exclusive devotion, which is also a synonym to Uttama Bhakti, topmost devotion. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur asks, what are the Swarupa Lakshan? What is Swarupa Lakshan? Intrinsic attributes of Bhakti. To answer this question, it is said that Bhakti is Anukulyena Krishna Nushilanam, the cultivation of activities which are meant exclusively for the pleasure of Shri Krishna. So the intrinsic attribute of Bhakti is Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam, cultivation of activities which are meant exclusively for the pleasure of Shri Krishna. In his Durgam Sangamani commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, page 6, Srila Jiva Goswami has explained that the word Anushilanam has two meanings. So Jiva Goswami Pada commented Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the book of Rupa Goswami. He said, first, Anushilanam means cultivation through the endeavors to engage and disengage one's body, mind, and words. Second, it means cultivation toward the object of our priti, the object of our affection, through manasi bhav, means feelings. It is including within cultivation by cheshta, one's activities. So manasi bhav means sentiments of the heart and the mind. Although Anushilana, cultivation, is of two types: cultivation through feelings of the heart, and also by the activities, cheshta. What happens? Manasibhava is included within cultivation by cheshta, one's activities. Hence, one's activities or endeavors, cheshta, and one's internal sentiments are mutually interdependent. And in the end, it is the chesta, the effort, which are concluded to be the sole characteristics of cultivation. Only when the activities of one's body, mind, words are favorably executed for the pleasure of Krishna, it is called bhakti. Kamsa and Shishupal were always endeavoring towards Krishna with their whole body, mind, and words. But their endeavors will not be accepted as bhakti because such endeavors were unfavorable to Krishna Priti, or Krishna's pleasure. Unfavorable endeavors cannot be called bhakti. The word bhakti is derived from the root verb bhaj. The verbal root bhaj means to serve. Bhajitesha vaidhatu sevayam parikirtita Garuda Puran. Tasmat seva budhai prokta bhakti sadhana bhuyasi. The verbal root bhaj means to render service. Therefore, thoughtful sadhakas should engage in the service of Shri Krishna with great endeavor, for it is only by such service that bhakti is born. So, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur is explaining that, like if we read the meaning of bhakti according to the verse of Srila Rupa Goswami, means the cultivation of activities, uninterrupted cultivation made by the efforts of body, mind, and words, which are favorable to Krishna, with the expressions of sentiments, spiritual sentiments, bhavas. So then Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur said, that Anushilanam means cultivation. So what is bhakti? What is the nature of bhakti? You can say in one word, Krishna Anushilanam means cultivation of activities that give pleasure to Krishna. You can translate like this: Krishna Anushilanam, cultivation of activities that are meant to give that give pleasure to Krishna. But this cultivation can be from efforts, cheshta, and also moods. Because cultivation, anushilana, means through the endeavors of the mind, body, and words, but also means the cultivation towards the object of our affection towards through sentiments. Means anushilana means cheshta rupa. We can read this in the Bhaktivedanta Sindhu. They describe in details. Bhaktivedanta Sindhu Bindu, Bhava Rupa and Cheshta Rupa. Means endeavors and the sentiments. But he's saying, what happened? The cheshta means that the activities, the endeavors, and the sentiments are mutually interdependent. In the end, it is the cheshta, the endeavors, which are concluded to be the sole characteristics of cultivation. That's why the anushilana is translated as cultivation of activities, not cultivation of moods, cultivation of activities through body, mind, and words, which give pleasure, meant exclusively for the pleasure of Krishna, and with the expression of many sentiments. But Bhaktivedanta Thakur also described here, bhakti is not only Krishna Anushilanam, it is Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Anukulyena means favorably. So then he just gave the example of Shishupal and Kamsa, like that one, Chanur and Mustik, they were fighting Krishna in the wrestling arena, and they were giving pleasure to Krishna while fighting him, like punching, all that, like having like wrestling with Krishna. Even though they were giving pleasure to Krishna, that's not devotion, because their aim and object was to kill Krishna in that fight. Even though Krishna was feeling happy fighting them, they were not performing bhakti, because bhakti is not only Krishna Anushilana, cultivation of activities that give pleasure to Krishna. It should be anukulyana, means favorable. So if you're trying to kill Krishna, that's not favorable to him. So that's not bhakti. So if you think that Chanur and Mustik, all these demons, were fighting Krishna and giving pleasure to him, if you think they have devotion, This is called abhyapti dosh. But example, if you think that Mother Jashoda, sorry, maybe I got confused. So we have two problems, which one is ati vyapti dosh, another is abhyapti dosh. So one is overextension rule, another is underextension rule. Another example, if you think that Mother Jashoda, she was giving distress to Krishna because she put him away, stopped breastfeeding to save the milk. And Krishna got angry. So you can say, well, she doesn't have devotion because when she stopped feeding her breast milk, Krishna got angry. But Mother Jashoda, she went to save the milk for Krishna's pleasure too, because later on he'll want milk products. So actually, he became angry at that time, but actually what she did was for his pleasure. So to think that Mother Jashoda doesn't have devotion, that's called under extension rule. So this is abhyapti dosh, and the other one, sorry, a mistake, is ati vyapti dosh. Ati means too much, so over extension rule. If you think Chandrastic have devotion, just because Krishna is happy, you are overextending the rule of bhakti, which is not, because they wanted to kill Krishna. And to think Mother Jashoda doesn't have bhakti, that's called avyapti dosh. Dosh means fault. Avyapti means in this case, under extension rule. Under extension, this fault of thinking that Mother Jashoda does not have bhakti, for example, because Krishna got angry with what she did. So coming back, what is bhakti? What is the swarupa lakshan? Means the internal, intrinsic nature of bhakti. One word, anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna Anushilanam, cultivation, Anushilanam, of activities meant for the pleasure of Krishna, but should be anukulyena. I wish I could also write in the screen and everything would just show up what I'm speaking. Because for some people, the Sanskrit words are really like a challenge. So we just write, and maybe in the future with the computer, we can do like this. There's also, of course, possible, but we need program, another app to do this, and screen sharing, and then the whiteboard. Anyway, so Shishupal and Kamsa, they were always endeavoring towards Krishna with their body, mind, words. But their endeavors will not be accepted as bhakti. So, because such endeavors were unfavorable to Krishna Priti, or Krishna's pleasure. Unfavorable endeavors cannot be called bhakti. The word bhakti means bhajate sevate iti bhakti, how Gurudeva says in the class, or here also the full verse from Garuda Puran, bhajitiesha vaidhatu sevayam parikirtita. The verbal root bhaj means to render service. Therefore, thoughtful sadhakas should engage in the service of Shri Krishna with great endeavor, for it's only by such service that bhakti is born. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur continues. According to this verse, Krishna Seva, or loving devotional service to Krishna, is called bhakti. Such service is the intrinsic attribute of bhakti. In the main verse, the word Krishna Anushilana has been used. The purport of this is that the Swayam Bhagavan Shri Krishna is the sole ultimate object indicated by the term Kevala Bhakti, exclusive devotion. The word bhakti is also used for Narayana. You can also say bhakti to Narayana, right? And various other expansions of Krishna. But the complete sentiments of bhakti, which can be reciprocated with Krishna, cannot be reciprocated with other forms. This point can be analyzed in detail on another occasion, when the topic is more suitable for it. For the time being, it is necessary to understand that Bhagavad Tattva is the only object of bhakti. Wow, so you see, actually, there's so many hidden explanations in this verse. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur showed us a glimpse and took it away. Maybe in the future, when you're more qualified, you'll hear this explanation. And one time I remember, Gurudeva sometimes also gives a little bit of this glimpse. This is also the same glimpse. Krishna Anushilanam in this verse, because this verse is the best verse from all the scriptures defining pure bhakti. So, but the verse says Krishna, not Vishnu, not Narayana, right? So in one sense, it's because Krishna is the Sarvavatari. All the incarnations come from him. So yes, you can have bhakti to any of Vishnu Tata, depending on the Swarupa of your soul, right? And if you say Krishna, you are referring to all of them automatically because everyone is included in Krishna, all the avatars. But here, Bhaktivedanta says that there's a why also Krishna is used. Because the word Bhakti is also used for Narayana. But Swayam Bhagavan Shri Krishna is the sole ultimate, not the soul, like the only ultimate objective indicated by the term Bhakti, exclusive devotion. The complete sentiments of Bhakti, which can be reciprocated with Krishna, cannot be reciprocated with other forms. But we will analyze in another moment. He says, although what we have to understand is Bhakti is only to Bhakti, right? Everyone knows. When you say devotion, it's only to Bhagavatattva. For us, it's like, okay, easy to understand, yes, devotion only to God. But there are many people, even in the Western cultures and in Western countries and India too, they have Bhakti towards different living entities, which are not God. For example, maybe they have Bhakti towards demigods, okay? Maybe they have Bhakti towards ghosts or some different living entities, some maybe kinds of, entities, demigods, but we should have Bhakti towards Krishna, the Supreme Lord. But of course, we know Guru and Krishna. Yasya deve para bhakti jata deve tata guru tasyate katita yataha prakashante mahatmana. If we have the same bhakti to Guru and Krishna, then we get all the realization of the scriptures. But of course, Krishna too. Gurudeva is telling us to worship Krishna. We have to worship Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So, Bhagavad Tattva is the only object of bhakti, devotion. Although the supreme absolute truth, Paratattva, is one, it is manifested in three forms. That is Brahma Tattva, effulgence, Paramatma Tattva, super soul, and Bhagavad Tattva, the form of Godhead. Those who try to perceive the absolute truth through the cultivation of Gyan cannot realize anything beyond Brahma Tattva. Through such spiritual endeavor, they try to cross material existence by negation of the qualities of the material world, neti neti. Thus, they imagine Brahma, the effulgence, to be inconceivable, unmanifest, formless, and immutable. But merely imagining the absence of material qualities does not grant one factual realization of the absolute truth. Such spiritualists think that because the names, forms, qualities, and activities in the material world are all temporary and painful, Brahma, the transcendence, which exists beyond the contamination of matter, cannot possess eternal names, forms, qualities, pastimes, and so on. They argue on the basis of evidence from the Shrutis, which emphasize the absence of material qualities and attributes in the Supreme. They, based on this verse from the scriptures, they say that the absolute truth is beyond the purview of mind and words, and that it has no ears, bodily parts, limbs, and so on. These arguments have some place, but they can be settled by analyzing the statement of Advaita Acharya found in Chaitanya Chandrodaya Natakam, written by Kavi Karnapur. He says, Yaya Shruti Jalpati Nirvishesham Sasa Vidate Savishesham Eva Vichara Yoge Satihanta Tasam Parayobali Savishesham Eva. Advaita Acharya said, in whatever statements of the scriptures, Shrutis, where the impersonal Tata, the form of, like the aspect of God without a form, is indicated, in the very same statements, personal Tattva is also mentioned, God being a person. By carefully analyzing all the statements from the Shrutis, from the Vedas as a whole, we can see that the personal Tattva, God as a person, is emphasized more. For example, one Shruti says that the absolute truth has no hands, no legs, no eyes, but we understand that he does everything, travels everywhere, and hears everything. The pure understanding of the statement is that he doesn't have material legs, hands, limbs, and so on, as conditioned souls do. His form is transcendental, meaning that it is beyond the 24 elements of material nature and purely spiritual. So it's so beautiful, right? To see Gurudeva, like, the parampara, right? Like this paragraph could have come from Gurudev's Harikatha yesterday. Because Gurudev tells all the time the same. This, sa ekata, what is that verse? Apani pada. Sorry, I don't know the verse from the Shruti, saying that apani pada, this one, and that means he doesn't have legs, but he walks. Sa ekata, he looks. He doesn't have eyes. He looks. He doesn't have legs. He walks. So what is the meaning of these verses? It means he doesn't have material legs. He doesn't have material eyes. That's how God is able to. Actually, he does everything with any part of his body. So Gurudeva always says this. What is the meaning in the Vedas that say that God doesn't have legs but he walks? Means his legs are transcendental, are not material like ours. So we have to understand God has a form, and even though the scriptures also mention the no form, or how to say impersonal aspect of God, which also comes from him, is his effulgence. But if you analyze scriptures, the same verses that speak about the impersonal, they also emphasize on the personal even more. And the meaning is that his form is transcendental. By the cultivation of Gyan, impersonal knowledge, it will appear that impersonal Brahma is the supreme tattva. Means that the topmost realization of God is God as a light or effulgence, transcendental. Here, the subtlety, there's a subtlety, is that jnana itself is material, meaning in the material world, whatever knowledge we acquire or whatever principle siddhanta we establish is done by depending solely upon material attributes. Therefore, either that principle is material, or by applying the process of negation of the material, vyatirek, we conceive of a principle which is the opposite of gross matter. But by this method, one cannot achieve the factual supreme tattva. So jnana, this impersonal knowledge, how they come to that? They negate, like they deny everything which is material, spiritual. Okay, God is not like, okay, this world is full of form, diversity, qualities, all that. So God has to be exactly opposite, because it has to be beyond all that. They think so. So they do the process of nating, is denying. No, God is not this, God is not that. So what they have in the end? Brahma, which is nirvikar, no form, nirvishesh, without specialities, nishakti, no potency. So this jnana is actually jnana itself is material, meaning in the material world, whatever knowledge we acquire or whatever principle we establish is done by depending solely upon material attributes. Therefore, either that principle is material, or by applying the of negation of the material, we conceive of a principle which is the opposite of gross matter. But by this method, one cannot achieve the factual supreme tattva. So by this, think, okay, God's not this, God's not that, we cannot attain the supreme tattva, means that understand who is the supreme absolute truth, which is God in his personal form, not the impersonal. In the Bhakti Sandarbha, who composed Bhakti Sandarbha, who remembers? Bhakti Sandarbha, a book by Srila Jiva Goswami, one of the 6 Sandarbhas, very important. Jiva Goswami has outlined that the tattva, the truth, supreme truth, which is attained by those who pursue the path of impersonal jnana, is as follows. So, how is the truth? The truth, the tattva attained by those who pursue the path of impersonal knowledge. So, here's the quotation of the Jiva Goswami Bhakti Sandarbha in Sanskrit. Very long excerpt in Sanskrit. Pratamata Shrutrinam hi vivekastavam eva yavata jara dirkitam chintam matram vastupastitam bhavati. And there's more, about half a page in Sanskrit. I'm just going to read the translation. It says, in the beginning, the students who are pursuing the path of Gyan require sufficient discrimination to comprehend the existence of a transcendent entity, Chinmaya Vastu, which is beyond the contamination of gross matter. Although the specific attributes of Godhead established by the potencies inherent within the Lord's very nature are intrinsically present within the transcendent entity, the adherents of the path of Jnana are unable to perceive them. So, in the beginning, those students who are pursuing the path of Jnana, in personal knowledge, they require sufficient discrimination to comprehend the existence of a transcendent entity, which is beyond the contamination of gross matter. Okay, so I think, okay, God is beyond all these things which is in this world. Although the specific attributes of Godhead established by the potencies inherent within the Lord's very nature are intrinsically present within that transcendent entity, the adherents of the path of Jnana are unable to perceive them. So those who are following this impersonal knowledge path, they cannot see Lord's potency, which is intrinsic to the Lord. These attributes of God, which come from by his potencies. An example is given. The sun is a luminary which dispels the darkness of night. Although its luminous quality is easily understood, the inner and outer workings of the sun planet, the difference which exists between individual particles of light, and the specific distinguishing features of the innumerable atomic particles of light are all imperceptible to human eyes. So everyone sees the sunlight, they understand, okay, the sun is giving light. But how does the sun work inside the globe? How the rays are coming? The difference which exists between individual particles of light. Did you know that there are differences in each particle of light? There is a difference. Specific distinguishing features of the innumerable atomic particles of life are all imperceptible to human eyes. We see, okay, the sun is there and the light is here, but we don't know exactly how the sun works, what is going on there, how also all the rays of the sun, each particle is different. The human eyes cannot see it. Similarly, those who view the transcendent entity through the eyes of impersonal jnana, impersonal knowledge, are unable to perceive the Lord's divine personal attributes. If, as previously described, one acquires transcendental vision by the special mercy of great devotees, one will be able to directly recognize the Lord's personal attributes. Otherwise, by realization of the impersonal existential Brahman, one will attain only the state of merging into that Brahman. Repeating. Otherwise, by realization of the impersonal existential Brahman, one will attain only the state of merging into that Brahman. So, I know this book is very small. I didn't tell you. Those who are first time reading or hearing, it's deep Tattva book, very deep, explaining about exactly what is Bhakti. So we need to go slowly so that we can understand each thing which is being said. So now he said that if you come to God through the knowledge that God is only light, you will only be able to realize God. So God is only one, but depending on how you trying to attain to Him, which kind of practice and which kind of how you see Him, you'll see Him in that way, right? So the Jnanis, they try to approach Lord by the impersonal knowledge and by controlling their senses and different kinds of practice, but especially they see God by the study of impersonal knowledge. They see God as that light, and they want to merge in that light. And in fact, they attain realization of God in that way. The yogis, they see God as the Paramatma, and they try to attain Him through the practice of yoga process. And they can get that realization of God as the Paramatma, the Super Soul. But the devotees, the bhaktas, they see God, they approach Him like in His feature as Bhagavan, and by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, they are able to directly associate and serve Bhagavan. So the Jnanis, their goal is to merge in Brahma. The yogis, their goal is to to attain this realization of Paramatma and merging also in Paramatma. And the devotees, their goal is to render service to the Supreme Lord Bhagavan. So when you merge in the light of God, that's called Brahma Sayuja. When you merge in the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone's heart, it's called Paramatma Sayuja or Ishvara Sayuja, which is worse. Okay, actually, Gurudeva already described is worse than Brahma Sayuja, merging in Brahma. Sometimes Gurudeva explains when you merge in Brahma, you become like a stone in the river. The soul becomes like a stone in the river, not there, which is just like a coma. But sometimes a pure devotee is going by, and that soul has the opportunity to again come back in this material world in the samsara chakra, and one day deliver, go to Vaikuntha Loka. But those who are in Ishvara Sayuja, merging in Paramatma, is very, very hard. So we'll just read 5 more minutes and then we'll go. This knowledge is stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.3. Swabhavo adhyatmam uchate. The inherent nature of the living entity is known as the self. The meaning of the words swabhav and adhyatma are as follows. Swa refers to the Shuddha Atma or pure self, and the word bhava refers to ascertainment. Consequently, the ascertainment of the pure living entity as a unique individual eternally related to the Supreme is known as Swabhav. When the Atma or self is made the principal subject of focus and thus given the power to act in its proper function, it is known as Adhyatma. So this is quoting Bhakti Sandarbha. Actually, until now, we were reading the Bhakti Sandarbha excerption. This was the translation by Bhaktivedanta Thakur or here, okay? Bhakti Sandarbha Jiva Goswami. Now comes Bhaktivedanta Thakur. The purport of this is that when spiritual knowledge is acquired through the process of negation, neti neti, God is not this material world, God is not whatever is in this world, the absolute truth, which is transcendental to Maya, is realized only partially. The variegated aspect of transcendence, which lies much deeper within, is not realized. If one who follows this process meets a persistent, self-realized Vaishnava Guru, then only can he be protected from the anartha of impersonalism. Those who pursue the path of yoga in the end arrive only at realization of the all-pervading Paramatma Tattva, super soul which is everywhere. They cannot attain realization of Shuddha Bhagavat Tattva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Paramatma, Ishvara, personal Vishnu, and so on are the objects of research in the yoga process. In this process, we can find a few attributes of bhakti, but it's not Shuddha Bhakti, not pure devotion. Generally, religious principles in this world, which pass for Bhagavad Dharma, are all merely yoga processes which strive for realization of the Paramatma feature. Repeating, generally, religious principles in this world, which pass for Bhagavad Dharma, looks like religion to connect with God, they are all merely yoga processes which strive for realization of the Paramatma feature. So it seems like they want to discover the Supreme Personality of Godhead and serve Him, but actually they just want to understand God as the Paramatma, right? Or also called in the Christian Dharma, Holy Ghost. We cannot expect that in the end, all of them will ultimately lead us to Bhagavad Dharma. Because in the process of meditation, there are numerous obstacles before one finally realizes the absolute truth. Besides, when after practicing either yoga or meditation for some time, one imagines, I am Brahma, I am God. This is called Ahangraha Upasana. There is the maximum possibility of falling into the trap of impersonal spiritual jnana. In this process, realization of the eternal form of Bhagavan and the variegated characteristics of transcendence is not available. The form which is imagined at the time of upasana or meditation worship, whether it be the virat, gigantic form of the Lord conceived in the shape of the universe, or the four-armed form situated within the heart, is not eternal. This process is called Paramatma Darshan, or realization of the super soul. Although this process is superior to the cultivation of impersonal jnana, it is not the perfect and all-pleasing process. Ashtanga Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Karma Yoga, and all other yoga practices are included within this process. Although Raja Yoga or Adhyatma Yoga follow this process to a certain extent, in most cases they are merely included within the process of Jnana. The Siddhanta, or philosophical conclusion, is that, okay, pay attention, the philosophical conclusion is that Paramatma Darshan cannot be called Shuddha Bhakti. Understood? Everybody understood? So the gist we have to learn from today is this. Paramatma Darshan cannot be called Shuddha Bhakti. In this regard, it is said in Bhakti Sandarbha. Antarayami Tamaya Maya Shakti Prachura Chaktyasha Vishishtam Paramatmeti. After the creation of this universe, the expansion of the Supreme Lord, who enters it as the controller of material nature, and who is situated as the maintainer of the creation, is known as Jagadishwara, or the all-pervading Paramatma. His function is related more to displaying the external potency rather than internal potency. Therefore, this tattva is naturally inferior to the supreme and eternal Bhagavat tattva. So, what will we learn today? Paramatma Darshan is not Shuddha Bhakti. God has three aspects: Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So, Srila Bhaktivedanta is telling us Bhakti applies only to Krishna, to the Bhagavat tattva. So he's explaining Bhagavat tattva doesn't mean Brahma tattva and not Paramatma tattva. Any other religious practice that aims to God, but if this God aspect or feature is Brahma tattva, that's not Bhakti. If it's Paramatma tattva, also it's not Bhakti. Paramatma is connected to the material world too, because he's a super soul of the material world. Paramatma. He's not like, he's transcendental, he's God, but he's more connected to the inferior energy than the spiritual energy, the superior energy. Topmost realization is realization of Bhagavan, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is only related to him. Bhagavat tattva, like Bhagavan, Bhagavat tattva. Does anyone want to ask anything or correct anything or tell anything, question? Absolute truth, exclusively realized through the process of bhakti, is called Bhagavan. Absolute truth, the supreme absolute truth, realized exclusively through the process of bhakti, is called Bhagavan. So we stopped here, page 14. We can continue next week. I think it was good. We were able to read a lot today. Does anyone want to ask anything or say anything? Otherwise, we'll continue chapter 1. A bit dense, because also it's that's why the acharyas, they come again and again, and they're actually presenting the same message in a different way, just like this same wine, just different bottle. Sometimes also how can I explain? Like different times of the world, like Srila Bhaktivedanta is from what, 1800s, right? From the 20th century or 19th, 20th century. I don't know exactly when this book was written. So of course, how they used to speak English and everything was more sophisticated, more refined, more advanced than what we speak nowadays. So sometimes to understand what is being said, we have to take our time to that sink in exactly what is the each word and what is being said. And Param Gurudeva also translated this and blessed for us to understand even more and made this even easier for us to understand. And our Gurudeva also, Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj, tirelessly, every day he's giving Harikatha and giving us the same translation in a very modern approach, full of stories and many also easy language so that we can understand. But still, we have to read again and again the scriptures. Then we will be able to dive deeper and deeper in the Harikatha, and it will be very beneficial for us. So we pray to Srila Gurudeva and Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur and Srila Guru Varga that all this transcendental knowledge one day may appear in our hearts. Jai Srila Gurudeva ki jai vancha kalpatarubhya shakri pasanubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Srila Gurudeva ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.